talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, welcome everybody on in to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of our Hot Take Show, coming to you live immediately following the Ryan Gosling and Gorillaz episode of Saturday Night Live, season 51, episode 14. My name is Jon Schneider from the SNL. So excited to be with you tonight and to spring forward with all of you as we do once a year here on the podcast. So don't get scared that we've been on for so long. We're just going to celebrate moving forward into the warmer months together. Of course, we are here as a presentation of LateNighter.com. We have two amazing panelists with us tonight and a great live chat. So first up, let's bring in our new friend joining us on the podcast, the roundtable already, and now back at it for a Hot Take Show. Olivia Macdonald is here. Olivia, how are you?
Good. I'm so happy to be here doing my first Hot Take Show after such a fun episode. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, this will be a blast. It was a really fun show tonight. So I'm excited to get into some really creative sketches and moments here, and joining us as well as the great Andrew Haynes. Haynes, how are you?
Well, I'll be honest. This is the worst night of the year. Hands down, all year, this is the worst night of the year. Just having to lose this hour of sleep, spring forward. I can't think of a worse thing to do with my early Sunday morning hours than lose one of them for this dumb daylight savings thing.
Oh, I don't want to have this whole debate with you here, but this is my favorite day of the year. I love this because then we finally, it doesn't get dark early. We get to do more things with our day. It is fantastic. So
you live much further north than me, so it doesn't get dark so early down here in the South. Yeah.
It makes a difference for me, definitely. But yeah, let's dive into this episode that we had here tonight. Ryan Gosling returns for his fourth time hosting Saturday Night Live, and I felt like we got a very classic, prototypical Ryan Gosling episode. Didn't have a lot of the staples that you would have expected from a Gosling episode based on what we've seen in the last three, but still the style of a Gosling episode, not Harry Styles, but just the style of Ryan Gosling, I think you got throughout the show here tonight. Olivia, do you have any hot takes or headlines coming out of this episode?
Honestly, I just loved how much breaking there was. That is just my favorite thing about SNL is when they break. I feel like it honestly doesn't happen that often, especially this intensely. And Ryan is just a host that every single time there is a major break. And this time it happened in multiple sketches. And so I personally loved that. I think there was a lot of great writing, a lot of great delivery, really fun, unique sketches. But my favorite thing for sure was all the breaking that was going on.
Yeah, breaking's really polarizing. It's one of the things that people, we talk about the most when we cover these shows. Some people really love it, some people don't. I've always taken the, premise of I prefer it when people are trying not to break and then they do break, as opposed to just letting loose. But I almost feel like Gosling is a bit of an exception. There's something fun about him where it just feels like it's infectious in a way. Haynes, how did you feel about tonight?
Okay, not exactly a hot take, but obviously Ashley and Sarah just had really great episode for both of them. Yes, the breaking was kind of my headline as well, and you're right, Gosling is one of those hosts that it just seems to always happen to. But I absolutely loved getting the note from control to the audience saying, hey, we changed these notes from dress rehearsal, get ready. It was awesome. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that sketch. I feel like that's the headline sketch that everyone's going to be talking about from this week, of them 51 years into this show, trying something that they've never really tried before. They've done elements of this, which we could discuss what this reminded us of, but this was something truly unique. And to go to a well that was different was exciting here tonight for that passing note sketch. As you said, big nights for Sarah, big nights for Ashley, big night for Mikey, his Beavis and Butthead pairing, that we would have expected Mikey to be very involved with tonight. So we definitely got to see that here. And I felt like Gosling was really, really excited to be there. So overall, I thought it was a fun night of Saturday Night Live, starting with our cold open, where we had Pete Hegseth, his press conference on Iran, where we had Jeremy introducing Pete Hegseth coming out, Colin Jost doing a keg stand or heg stand. And that was the mostly the premise of this, where he's going back and forth with reporters played by Tommy, Andrew, Ben, Sarah, who were asking questions to Jost, and we've seen a lot of these this season. This one was interesting because it felt a little bit more fleshed out than maybe what we have seen last week when they did this, but it's going to culminate in Jost bringing out Ashley as Kristi Noem to say goodbye to at least the character on SNL, you would think, given she is no longer in her role. So we do have that tacked on to the end of this. Olivia, how do you feel like this all came together for the cold open?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a nice departure from, Trump. I love Judge's Trump, of course, but, seeing it every week gets, a little bit tiring. So it was definitely nice to see a departure from that. I think, we expected to see Ashley as Kristi Noem, and, I was happy to see it, even though it was what I expected to see, just because we're probably not going to be seeing as much of that anymore because she's not going to be in the news. I thought there was some really smart writing in this. Like I wrote down the line about the boots, like, your mom's next to my bed after I bang her. Like, I thought that was so funny. So yeah, I thought it was a really tight sketch. It didn't go on too long. It kind of felt like it flew by. And I thought, yeah, it was kind of refreshing for me.
I thought it was so interesting, Haynes, that they did something this week that they didn't do last week. And I really praised them last week for switching things up with the war breaking out. And they were like, okay, we have to no longer do a State of the Union cold open. We should do something that covers that. And I thought, you know what, we're going to end up pivoting whatever the cold open was to Kristi Noem being let go. Here, I don't really think that they made that choice, at least perceptively. Like, it felt like this was a cold open that they had for a little bit. We're going to, lean on Colin this week in the cold open, and then we're going to tack the Kristi Noem thing on at the end. Do you feel like that was the right call, and did you enjoy the cold open we saw here tonight?
I did enjoy the cold open, and obviously, like you were saying, as far as being fleshed out, last week it had to be so last minute. So this did feel like they had a little more prep and practice and just involvement, thought going into that writing, and yeah, it did feel like the gnome thing was kind of tacked onto the end. I didn't have a problem with that at all. I'm glad we didn't waste too much time on the Kristi Noem thing. I think it was a pretty good in and out. Ashley Padilla is obviously great in that role, and I loved the joke. That like, as she told her plastic surgeon, the work is never done. I thought that it was funny that we got so many song references in the first few sketches of this. I mean, in the cold open, we had the Papa Roach, and then Under the Sea, and then in the wedding thing, we're doing like Who Let the Dogs Out with the Who Let the Kiss Out thing. And I just thought it was funny that we were getting a lot of these old song references, like from the 90s or 2000s, in those first couple sketches. I don't know why that stood out to me. But I guess they were just thinking a lot about some nostalgic songs this week. I thought this was full of some great fast jokes. I do love Colin as the Hegseth character. I love when he said that they made him throw away his scotch, and that they were going nuts like Shia LaBeouf and Nollins. I thought that we just had a bunch of quick jokes, which is always the case with the Hegseth character. And John, that I love the quick bang 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 jokes. So this worked really well for me.
Yeah, and speaking of 90s references, I think he calls Tommy a Hanson brother at some point as well, which
right.
I've seen online before. I think that they've gone to the James as Trump well so much this season that I think they feel like switching off and using Jost whenever they can as like putting in the backup running back every now and then to give the starter a breather, I think makes sense. And given that the Secretary of War is so prevalent now, this fit really well. So I do feel like Jost, whatever it was the writing, the performance was so much better than he was last week. I really enjoyed that they made the switch. I don't feel like it was an amazing cold open last week, but here I felt like the writing was so much stronger. So I was happy with what we got here tonight. Let's go to our monologue, which I think is going to be one of the monologues that we're going to be talking about the most after this season. There's been some really good ones. Glenn Powell bringing up that UPS guy, Skarsgård at the 1000th episode of the show, Even Finn Wolfhard bringing up the Stranger Things cast. Like, I think that there was some good ones this season, but this one felt like long and pretty unique, where we're going to get Gosling walking out saying it's a perfect time to be back in New York City, early March. And then he just notices that, like, wait, Harry Styles is in the audience. And they have this great shot of Harry, who's just there staring at him. And he can't get his words together because he realizes, like, all the attention is being put on Harry. So a lot of fun they have with this, including a great split screen sequence. We also get a shot of the cameraman, Anthony Tarantella, who's wearing an I Love Harry shirt. That's camera 2. And then Sarah Sherman's going to notice Harry. We're going to get the rest of the cast coming out to sing with him. Haynes, I thought this was such a creative, fun monologue that we had here tonight with Harry Styles in the building 1 week early.
It was really fun, and haven't heard from Mike Murray the exact timing, but it was basically like a 7-minute promo for next week, and they just leaned so hard into it. They leaned so hard into that bit. I mean, they never came off it. It was really funny. And speaking of the breaking, tell me, did it look like when Mikey kissed him, he hit him like right in the eyeball? Is that why he broke so hard? I think he kissed him like right in the eye.
I think he broke because he didn't kiss him in dress. So like he sort of like leaned on him, but he like took it up a notch in the live show.
Yeah. That was a great moment, and you could tell that was really genuine and unexpected. Whatever he was dealing with in that moment. So yeah, really fun. Overall, it was just very playful, going back and forth so much, and Harry Styles I think played his part really well in that, with just a little bit of I wouldn't call it breaking, but he's letting just enough of that kind of genuine smile come through that it felt warm and goofy, and so overall I think it had a good tone.
Yeah, we have gotten this thing a couple years ago, where we had Ryan Gosling appearing the week before his last hosting appearance, where he appeared in the Kristen Wiig episode a week early. I think we had like Willem Dafoe appearing in the Will Forte episode a few years ago. So this does happen every now and then. There's always this like great concept about how typically like a first-time host will be brought in a week before to learn the ropes before they end up hosting. Obviously, Harry's not a first-time host, but the fact that they flew him in from London, and I believe he was performing a concert in Manchester last night, got him there for this, was really cool, Olivia. So what did you think of this monologue?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I mean, not just because I'm a Harry fan and it was exciting to see him, but also just because it was such an unusual way to do a cameo, and to use like the next host. It also, to me, it shows like such a lack of ego from Ryan Gosling to sort of let a celebrity who's arguably more famous and definitely has more of a cult following to kind of steal the show like that, where, it's all anybody who's like not really like super in the SNL world is going to be talking about is that Harry Styles made this cameo. And it could like take so much attention away from Ryan, but it's obvious that he doesn't really care, which I just think is so admirable. And yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun.
It was really fantastic. And our friend Mike Murray's in the chat mentions that this monologue was 7 minutes and 31 seconds, the longest non-stand-up monologue since the last time Gosling was there for his third time hosting. And every time that Gosling has been at the show, he has had somebody come in and interrupt his monologue. So we had Mike Myers on his first time. We had Emily Blunt last time, trying to remember live who the second time person was, but we'll get it in the chat in a moment. But yeah, literally every time there's always somebody there. And I feel like that's like the one thing that we did end up getting in this episode that was sort of a tradition of a Ryan Gosling episode. So, Emma Stone, thank you, Victor. There you go. And Alice, I appreciate it.
Great job, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. So love this. It was really, really cool to get to see this happening here. Also got a shout out the line from Sarah Sherman, because we love this stuff here. The Harry Styles is here. Get me to God's country. Of course, appreciate that. Only 1 year ago, the famous Morgan Wallen incident that will never be forgotten of 2025. Okay, let's jump over to the first sketch of the night, which is our wedding kiss sketch, where we're gonna have Cam as a DJ who's gonna bring up Sarah and Mikey as the bride and groom. They're playing Mark and Ellie. They are there giving a speech thanking their guests. We're going to see Ashley there as Claudette, one of the guests, and also Andrew and Chloe. And then Ryan is there as well, who's a little confused. Apparently, there was a situation where the groom Mark backed into him with his car. So Jonathan, Ryan's character, decided to not do anything about it except that he wanted to attend the wedding. So when he's there, he learns the famous tradition of clinking on a glass, which forces the bride and groom to kiss, and he just continues to overdo it. We're also going to see Jane and Jeremy as siblings in this one who take things too far as well. Olivia, what do you think of our wedding kiss sketch?
Yeah, I mean, so normally when I see a wedding setup, I kind of just like sigh, like I'm like, oh God, But for some reason, this one really just worked for me. Even though I knew what was gonna happen, it still made me laugh. Like it was very clear, immediately what the gag was, and no matter how many times it happened, I still was laughing at it. I love that they didn't ever address why he was dressed the way he was. I absolutely love that. I'm like, we don't need to address it. It's fine. I love that they didn't really go too much into the backstory. Like you said, like he just said he backed into his car and then they kind of leave it at that, which I thought was great. So many little moments with like the poozy and like the ways that he was saying the words, delivery was so great. And he started to break a little bit in that sketch as well. But yeah, I thought the only thing I would say about it is that the ending was just like a little abrupt to me. It was kind of like, he just left with Ashley's character, the widow. That felt like a little bit unfinished to me, but I thought other than that, it was really great. And I was surprised by how much I laughed at it, considering that it was like another wedding sketch.
Yeah, they continue to go to the wedding, bachelorette parties, bachelor parties, stripper. Like they have hit that theme a lot in the last year or so. But Haynes, what did you think of this one?
I enjoyed this a lot. In between commercials, when they showed that set coming up, my wife said she bet me lunch tomorrow that it would be Domingo, and I knew it would not be Domingo. So she's buying lunch tomorrow. So that was great. But this was very funny, and I love how like it immediately became like a power thing for Donathan. First of all, I love the name Donathan. That's a hilarious name to me. But I love how it was like clearly like a power thing, as he's like getting them to do this. And then, and yes, as Olivia said, when he dropped the Poozy line, I just wasn't expecting to hear a word like that. And that was so funny to me. And then, of course, we got Poonis later. But toward the end, when he's like, I'm doing the siblings now, I really got a kick out of that. I thought, as Olivia was saying, like the gag, you figure out the gag early, but I think they did a good job with the type of escalation, pushing it to different parts of the body and then siblings and stuff. So it had the right escalation. It was a fun idea, and it is kind of fun to have the mystery, the gaps in the backstory. Why is this guy dressed like this, and why is he so kind of power hungry in this moment to like torture these people? Overall, I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah, there was a couple times this night where I felt like there was elements of like Bowen's Dr. Please character in some of these sketches. And this was like, it's sort of that vein of like a weird guy. And you're like wondering what he's doing here and what his motivations are. Personally, I related to this sketch so much, and I'll tell you how, because I do DJ weddings as like throughout the summers and to this day, and I am constantly faced with the tradition of clinking a glass and seeing couples run to kiss each other. And there's an element of this which they didn't cover in this sketch, but as the wedding DJ, you typically lower the music so that everyone can like be like, woo, as they're clapping their hands. So oftentimes like this will happen when like I'm not even standing at the DJ booth and I'll be like maybe eating or something. And then all of a sudden I'll hear the clinking and I'll have to like run like a mile to the DJ booth to go lower the music as they're going crazy. So I'm so used to seeing this happen. So to me, this was so funny. And I felt like, even though we've done like the wedding thing, we've done Domingo, like all this stuff, I do feel like this was like a very particular tradition that they've not covered before, that they haven't touched on. And the fact that they just like took it so far, I think really worked well in the writing. So I like this a lot, honestly. And it could just be personal relation to it, but I felt like it was really strong for me to open things up. And Jane and Jeremy were very funny together. And that's a pairing that we've never really seen on the show. I know that there was like a very clear and obvious bit for them to do here, but I feel like as we're talking about Jane's ascendance and Jeremy being a very obvious pick to come back to the show, I do feel like this is a pairing we can explore a little bit more. And I felt like their lines were really strong next to each other. So yeah, there was a lot of things I really did enjoy here. Let's go to our next pre-tape, where we're going to get a pre-tape called Otezla, all about a medication for plaque psoriasis, where Ryan, Jeremy, and Sarah are there to talk about this medication. Ashley is the spokesperson, and it is essentially a happy fun ball redux, where we're going to get a medication that no one truly understands how it works. It's a mystery to the universe, as they're going to take this as far as they possibly can go. Haynes, how did you feel about Otezla?
I absolutely loved it, especially just how far they pushed the mythology and the lore and just, as you know, as you said, the mystery of the universe aspect. It was, if it had just been that we don't know what it is and it could be dangerous to us, if it had kind of stuck on that note, I don't think I would have gotten much of a kick out of it. But the first time they said, and I wish I'd gotten a chance to write down all the great lines, but when they, but when it got to that point where he said, did a blind man tell you it was foretold, or something like that, I was like, okay, I love where this is going. And then they start really getting into the, the idea that it's this awesome, wonderful, incomprehensible type of being or non-being. Otezla experiences time different than us, and so the past is its future, our future is its past, or something. I thought it was really funny how far they pushed it through all those different examples. I thought it was really creative, really fun. Absolutely love this one.
I have such a weird criticism of the sketch, and like I love this comedic premise because I like the conspiracy theories and mysteries. So for me, like those always work. But my one thing was like, I think it was so confusing for everybody. They were so joyous about it. And they're like, okay, well, it cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. And they're just like perfectly okay with the mystery of it. And then it gets like very dark at one point. And I almost wish that they like chose one path, which was either confusing or dark. But the dark part was like 9 out of 10 dermatologists recommend Otezla. The other one carved numbers into the wall and shot himself. And you're like, wait, what? So it's like maybe Otezla has a mind of its own and it's like trying to like end the human race. And I think that there's like an escalation to that, but there's also a like trying to follow the through line here. And maybe that's me overthinking this, Olivia, but what did you think of Otezla?
Yeah, I also sort of have mixed feelings about it. It definitely wasn't my favorite. I sort of thought that, I do have respect for like all the world building and the creativity that goes into coming up with like all the different sort of motivations for this drug and the backstory and the lore and everything. And but I do agree, like it kind of was towing this line between like whimsical and dark, and it didn't feel like it ever really fit into one of those two categories. I was also like, I also work in advertising. So like as soon as I see like an ad that's set up as an ad, not something that like becomes an ad at the end, but is an ad the whole time, I kind of like put my advertising brain on and I'm like, what is this based on? And, like other times, like with the pre-tape that's about like the positive COVID test that gets you out of social situations. Like that was based on like an insight that people like, they want to get out of social situations so they could use a positive COVID test to do that. It's based on like an authentic truth. Whereas this one, I was like, I'm not really sure what this is based on or where it came from, because I've never, like, I know they say in the commercial, like, it's not a pill. Okay, so what is it? But like, it's not something that I've ever really like clocked or thought about. So to me, I was like, I'm not really sure where this came from. Like, it's creative. There's a lot of fun things going on here, but like, it just didn't really like hit for me.
The other weird thing about this sketch is that with Happy Fun Ball, which is a very famous SNL commercial, where like nobody really understands, is it's supposed to be a toy for kids, but nobody really understands what it does. It's not a real thing, whereas Otezla is a real medication, and they just turned it into something really crazy. So there is like a slight difference there, and I'm curious to see how Otezla or Sky Rizzy chooses to respond
Yeah.
during the week, if at all. There's another layer here that we can get to.
They might
So,
be enemies. They might be working together.
yes, they may have encouraged the sketch to happen in the first place. So we shall see. We'll find out more. Let's talk about the Cyclops sketch, The Treasure of Parlor, where James Austin Johnson is going to do the voiceover and introduce us into the world of these three Cyclopses, where we're going to have Keenan, Ryan, and Mikey, who are there to find the treasure, as they are some one-eyed warriors who made their way to the door that is being blocked by Ashley and Veronica. And they are there to give a test of the mind or a riddle. And it is a sketch that really breaks down, as these guys cannot understand what a riddle is or how to answer the questions. They're just going to try and go for the door regardless of the riddle that is happening here, causing Ashley to break more than we've probably ever seen her up until this point in her SNL career. But this felt like a opportunity for Mikey and Ryan especially to have some fun and maybe go beyond the script. So Olivia, what did you think of our Cyclops sketch?
I absolutely loved it. I was cackling the entire time. I mean, first of all, shout out to the makeup and prosthetics department, because I love to see them shine like this. But yeah, I mean, it was another perfect performance from Ashley. Just so good from her. She just always takes it a step further. She's so dramatic. It's unbelievable. I love it so much. I loved how simple the concept was. I love that it wasn't overwritten. Like, if you listen to like what's actually in the script, there's not a ton there. Like, it's very delivery based, which I love, because it's just such a change from some of the other sketches. The only thing is, I think, like, just with this is like very technical, but with like the camera angles, I felt like sometimes they needed to be a little bit wider, because you would see Ashley being like, stop, no, no. And then like you weren't actually seeing what they were doing to trigger that reaction from her. But I didn't mind, because like, as long as Ashley's on my screen being goofy, I'm happy with that. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, there was a couple points where I actually had to like go back and rewatch this part just to fully get what she was laughing at. But there was the first sequence of like, you are his wife, as they're like coming towards her. And then she like does that real breaking. And then there's another section of like, I am begging you, please stop coming to the door, as they continue to charge towards the door. And to your point, Olivia, that could play extremely well, or even just extremely different, if you're in the house watching this one, seeing the angle of them walking through to get to the door. I still think it worked for me on television, but Haynes, did it work for you?
I mean, it worked. I enjoyed it. I was laughing, and one of the first things I thought to myself is, gosh, we're just constantly reminded how good Ashley can be, kind of with the nuance of her reactions. And then of course, she does get pretty dramatic, but it was pretty straightforward sketch. Nothing really like particularly exotic about the writing or anything. I did enjoy it, but I had the exact same thought about the frames that we were seeing. I wish I could have. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm seeing Ashley break, but I wish I could understand like what was pushing her to that point. Like, it's not clear to the audience, at least at home. I'm sure in the studio it was, but in the audience, I mean, at home, it just was not clear to me what was pushing her to that moment. And I felt like I was missing something. So enjoyed it, but it just felt like there was a little bit of a hole. It had a very Legends of the Hidden Temple vibe when it first started. And that was a nostalgic throwback for me. I completely knew that he was going to think the key was treasure. That was pretty. It seemed like that joke was so predictable. But I think the sketch worked. I just wish that that we've been able to see exactly like what was pushing her to that place that was making her break. Because, like you said, we've really never seen Ashley break on this level, and now we're not getting to see like what's making that happen. So there was a little bit of a hole in this sketch for me.
Yeah, I think it was and again, I'm just gathering this from what we could see. Like, I think it was that Ryan was going for the door. She's like, please stop. He backs up. He goes for the door again. And she's like, I'm begging you, stop. And then as he backs up, I wonder like if this was scripted, like Mikey goes for the door. And then she's like, no, wait, like as like she sees like another person coming there. And it was almost like she was playing it as if she was surprised to see him go for the door as well. So again, I take your point that maybe that there was more to be seen here. I just felt like the looseness in the episode, and especially in this sketch, yeah, it felt like something that we would have seen in like the early 80s, like with with Eddie and Joe and like those type of things, where it was not something of this era that they would, play with that format a little bit. It did make me laugh a lot. And again, like, similar to Heidi with Beavis and Butthead, Ashley's only like a year and almost 2 years into her career, but like we really haven't seen her break. So like I give her the grace of like this was something that like we could all get behind and have some fun with. So I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was great. A lot of fun here. Let's go to our next pre-tape, which is the Monty McTreats and the Pastry Bakery, where we're going to have Mikey and Veronica singing about the bakery with James and Chloe there with a bunch of kids ready to go in to like Willy Wonka style to see the factory or to see the bakery. Ryan's going to come out as Monty McTreats and be all excited, except when they open the door, one of the dough Dee-Dees has hung themselves. And it's a horrific scene for all of the kids. And then we do find out that these dough Dee-Dees that work at the factory or the bakery, they have a certain practice that once they mate, the men kill themselves, which is a disaster for all of the kids. Eventually,
well, it's not sad. It's just what happens.
It's just what happens. Yeah, for sure. Keenan comes in as Leonard. Says, you're trying to fix the situation. They definitely can't go to the other side of the factory. There's a lot of dead dough Dee-Dees there. And then, they'll try and close the door. And it is a bad situation for all of the kids. Haynes, your thoughts on Monty McTreats and the Pastry Bakery?
First of all, I could not tell if they were saying like dough Diddies or needies, like need with a K, like need as in like you need like you need dough. I couldn't tell exactly what they're saying. But obvious, Willy Wonka vibe. And so that their version of the Oompa Loompas are gonna, which are typically portrayed as, kind of like these like indentured or enslaved workers or something, is the way we usually make that joke. And so you kind of feel that there's going to be something horrible about these characters when you're exposed to them. I love this kind of dark stuff. So seeing the dough Dee-Dee or whatever it was hang themselves, and then of course the one jumping out of the window too and going kersplat all over the place was fun. And it's fun the way they try and kind of ignore that. And obviously the parents are kind of stuck on that and not ready to get off that. It was a fun premise. I don't think that it went on like too long, but it feels like something that could be, you could get through pretty quickly. And I enjoyed it overall, but I don't think it's going to be like the most noteworthy sketch that comes out of this episode for me.
Our friend Mary in the chat says that this is an adaptation of a Groundling sketch Mikey wrote and performed live in 2015 called Cupcake Factory, which is interesting. So that's a great note. Thank you, Mary. But like why now? Why did he decide to bring this back with Ryan? Has he been holding this for so long, or is this like another white whale situation? Olivia, what did you think of the sketch?
Yeah, I thought it was all right. It definitely wasn't my favorite. I mean, I think I expected it to kind of take a dark turn at one point. I thought maybe it would be more like gore related, maybe like a Sarah Square type deal. But I will say that the twist that it took definitely got me. I like fully gasped. I was like, oh my God. But it was fun. It just like didn't like stand out to me. The one thing that I did love about it though was Veronica. I thought that she was super animated and fun to watch. Like it was a role that I think really worked for her. And, obviously she's newer, so we do sometimes get a lot of her playing like straighter roles, but I felt like she kind of got to shine a little bit in this one, which I enjoyed seeing.
I agree. And I think that this is a conversation for the rest of the week as well. But it goes to show you when you have like a huge week as a rookie, sometimes it could really help propel you in other weeks. And I think Veronica was in 4 sketches tonight. This was a moment where like everyone's coming off of last week seeing like how good Veronica could be on the show. And they're like, okay, we can use her in all of our sketches, gave them a lot of confidence. And then Mikey, who's trying to put this on the show, is like, hey, Veronica can sing. She was fantastic last week. Let's get her in there. She just did a great job in the Cyclops sketch, back to back with this one. I feel like we're really seeing her momentum at the show continue to rise. Also, really, yeah, I did really like the sketch. I thought it was very funny. I think Keenan was so much better served here than he was in the Cyclops sketch. That was like another thing I didn't mention earlier. But like, I think the Cyclops sketch would have been even better if it was just Ryan and Mikey versus Ryan, Mikey, and Keenan. Because I just think like the two of them who were like tag teaming the door, I think plays much better if there's just not like a third Cyclops just standing there. But Keenan as Leonard in this sketch was very funny to me. That was like perfect Keenan role.
I will say that was one of, if not maybe my favorite part of the sketch. I loved Keenan's part, and like we discussed, him discussing their biological like processes. That was hilarious to me. I loved that bit.
So good. Yeah. You know who else was great tonight? Gorillaz. Seriously, so cool to get them on the show, who had some major performances here tonight. So we're going to have Ryan come out in his Cyclops costume, or like the prosthetic, to introduce the song Clint Eastwood, which is a 2001 song they performed here tonight. And I love that. Like through SNL history, when you get a band performing like an old song, like AC/DC performing like You Shook Me All Night, like so cool. And then we had that with Sir DZL. We had the Moon Cave with Black Thoughts. So some really cool performances tonight. Before I get your thoughts on those performances, I just want to let you guys know something cool. So I know we have like a lot of music lovers in the chat. So what we had here with Gorillaz was something that had never been done at the show before. So occasionally I'm being told that bands will bring in their monitor desks since everything is already dialed in for their tour and it makes them feel safe. It's rare that they bring in their front of house sketch, their FOH desk, their mixing console. So it's essentially the entire board that they would use for a concert venue. Tonight they did it so they can control every aspect of the sound mix by pre-mixing all of their stems, their sound artifacts that get sent to 8H for the front of house audience and the music mix room, the broadcast. So they needed 500 square feet of additional studio floor space and had to build a little bungalow for their performances here tonight, which is something that really has never happened before on SNL. So just like a cool behind the scenes production aspect to what we got here. I hope we're able to see some sort of video of that during the week, because I thought the Gorillaz performances were so cool here tonight. Olivia, what did you think of them?
Yeah, I thought they were really cool, like technically from a music perspective. I think, they are sort of a bit before my time in terms of like when they were really popular. And I didn't really know what to expect. Like I sort of heard like maybe a song or two, but I was really impressed by what I saw. I thought it was really fun. It was really like musically complicated, I guess I'll say. And so I really have respect for that. But yeah, I'm going to have to go back and listen to more of it now, which is what SNL is so great at, is getting us hooked on, bands or people we didn't know.
Yeah, and Haynes, like we didn't know how they were going to perform tonight. Obviously, they've done a lot of virtual performances over the years, but they did have those incredible backgrounds there. And it just felt like visually appealing, and the listening was so great here today.
Yeah, so I expected that it would be visually appealing. First of all, love the note on the production aspects. Nobody knows your sound better than your front of house engineer. So that's awesome that they could do that. It was super cool before, during the commercial break, we got that cut to Damon playing the melodica, like jamming with the SNL band, which was super hip. And then, of course, fun. You might have been able to predict that, like, I mean, a band comes on, like maybe they're going to do their biggest hit if they've never been on SNL before. But you didn't know for sure. Actually, I think of this as the type of artist that maybe wouldn't necessarily do that. So I wasn't exactly expecting it. I was kind of excited and fun when they hit those first, I was excited when they hit those first notes, but it was a great performance. Del the Funky Homo Sapien was awesome. And so just top to bottom, I thought it was super hip. The second performance was really cool. I didn't know that song, and I loved many aspects of it. So just top to bottom, I dug the whole thing. Yeah, really thought it was great.
Yeah, it really felt like it was, I know they've never been on Saturday Night Live before, but it felt like one of those cool things that we've been getting every now and then at the show. Like last year, how we got Stevie Nicks. It was like, yeah, like let's like, they're celebrating their 25th anniversary. They have a new album out. Like, let's think big here and get a band that we could do some really cool creative things with. And I just love them continuing to innovate. And clearly, they showed that on screen tonight. So great job to Gorillaz for their performances here. Let's head over to Weekend Update, where we get a lot of jokes about the war. We're also going to get one set of correspondence here on Update. We're going to get Keenan and James here in a piece that was cut last week. So we briefly talked about this on the Hot Take Show at the end last week about what was cut from Update. That was this that they brought back here as Keenan as Pastor Update and James as Church Leader Teddy, where they are there to, pray on the Update desk with Michael Che and talk about the food in the dressing room and thank God for making women, and that they pray that Che finds peace, love, and gets off his laptop with those nasty pictures as he keeps gooning in the kitchen and his laptop's full of sin. Haynes, what did you think of our correspondence here tonight, Keenan and James Austin Johnson?
It sounds like a lawnmower when he starts it up. That was a great line about his laptop. That sounds like a lawnmower when he starts it up. Excuse me. This was a funny bit. The green room snacks rap was fun. I loved JJ as band leader Teddy, especially with his like proverbs that he was sharing with people, his little snippets of life advice, especially since the first one was kind of so backwards with the sandwich and the bread thing. Really, really funny. Kind of predictable that this is a pastor who is going to start talking about women at some point for me. Maybe it's just because I've seen too many times that clip online of the pastor preaching, and then the woman walks in front, and he does the thing where he says like, "Oh Lord," and the whole the whole segregation like gasps, and he's like, I have fallen into sin right in front of everybody. You got to forgive the pastor or something. Maybe I've just seen that too much lately. But I felt like this is the kind of pastor who was going to talk about women. I don't know why he was so into big foreheads. And what really cracked me up was when he started listing women that I guess he's implying have big foreheads. So when he started talking about Rihanna and Zooey Deschanel, I've never thought about their foreheads. I don't comment on women's foreheads, but that was very funny to me.
Good for you.
Yeah. But the whole bit was pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Olivia, what did you think of Keenan and James at the Update desk, who both have not been there the entire season until episode 14?
Well, I comment on women's foreheads. And I was like, yes, that is so accurate. Like, I feel like I've never heard anyone talk about them, like, especially on live TV. And I was like, yeah, that is accurate. But no, I thought it was super fun. It was sort of classic Keenan, which I feel like it doesn't matter like how many times he does it. It's still funny and familiar in like a very comforting way to me. And then seeing him paired with Jaja, I don't think my memory is probably failing me, but I don't think it's something that I've seen before. And I just thought it was really fun. I also love getting Jaj like doing a musical piece. I love the ones that he does with Dismukes. And yeah, I thought it was really fun and cute. And like, I wouldn't say it like blew me away in terms of the writing or anything, but it was just fun and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we haven't seen the two of them at the Update desk since they played Mitch McConnell and Herschel Walker in the Miles Teller season 48 premiere. So it's been a while, but they are a fun pairing. And I thought that James, especially in the background, as he was riffing as sort of like his Southern, background player, like I thought that he had some good moments there. Cut from the Update desk tonight, we had two other sets of correspondence that we didn't get. So the first one was the pairing of Marcelo and Cam together as the two kids from the back of the school bus. So that was cut from the Update desk. We also had Tommy as Jeff from work, who's constantly on a work call instead of talking to Colin. And he's talking, there's like some meta moments there as he's back and forth talking about, I don't watch SNL either. And then Colin's like, what are you talking about our show? So we lost Tommy at the desk tonight, cut. And then Marcelo and Cam. So just like Keenan and James, maybe we will see these pop up in the future. All right, let's get to the sketch we're really excited to talk about. This is the one we alluded to at the start of the show. Let's talk about passing notes. So here we're going to have a class where we got Marcelo as Gavin, Jane as Mandy, Cam as Dante, and Mikey as Owen. And they are there to talk to their teacher, Miss Perry, and Ryan, who's playing the principal, as Ryan would like to speak to the class about the bullying problem. But they see Owen passing a note, and we get on screen this closed caption of that the contents of these notes have been changed since rehearsal. So this is true. Everything that was in the dress rehearsal, and I believe everything that was in the rehearsals prior to the dress rehearsals, were not the contents of the notes that were read during the live show. So we're going to get multiple notes here, including Mikey's about ChatGPT, Marcelo about the principal missing layups. We're going to get Cam's note about Miss P at the gynecologist. Jane's note will be about Ryan going to buy a whole row of seats at Barbie. And then Mikey reading Cam's note, which will end up being about Mikey looking someone like someone who is an undercover cop. We're also going to get this great moment of Ashley looking in her desk and finding spaghetti, which was not there either in dress rehearsal. So we'll talk about the dress changes and what was there in a moment. But what we saw in the live show here, Olivia, what did you think of this?
Yeah, sorry to just be gushing about every sketch in this episode, but I absolutely loved this. I really hope they post the dress version. This is my plea to them to do that. I don't know if they will. I kind of doubt it, but I would love if they did because I just want to see what was different about them. I also want to know if they told them that they were going to change it or if they just changed it. They did. Okay. Yeah,
So
it was
they knew that it was going to change every time. They just didn't know.
They just didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so much fun. And like, it really leaned into the fact that this is a live show and it's okay to take risks and have fun and like actually switch things up, which is something you really don't get to do in any other medium. You know, it's like there is scripted sitcoms and then there's live sketch comedy, and it's such a unique benefit that they have, and I love that they took advantage of it, and I really hope to see them do that more. And then obviously it goes without saying that just like seeing the breaking was delightful for me. I know that some people don't agree with that, but I just thought like the extent, I mean, seeing Ashley sort of break like truly for the first time in the Cyclops sketch and then seeing it go even further a few sketches later was awesome. Another thing I just wanted to note about this sketch too is that it feels like whenever Ryan Gosling hosts, like he's part of the cast. Like it doesn't really feel like it's a host that they're trying to cater to or like work to support because they're uncomfortable or they're nervous. It literally feels like he's just another person in the cast. He's so comfortable and his chemistry with everyone is just really, really good. So I loved the fact that he got to be part of this unique sketch in particular.
I'm totally with you. And my whole thing, you know, since we started talking about this show is like, I don't think SNL is going to win the war on funny. You know, you may find SNL hilarious. You may not, you know, the classic line of like, SNL hasn't been funny since blank. Like, I don't think that, you know, everything is going to be for every single person on the show. And I think that, you know, winning the show or the show doing well doesn't always have to be like, this is the most hilarious thing. But what they can do is be inventive. They could be creative. They can try new things. And I think that, you know, the show has become so institutionalized that they become so comfortable with their formats. And I think that given the lack of change at the show from era to era in more modern times, we don't get more inventive premises in sketches. So I want to applaud the show for trying something extremely novel here tonight. And even if you didn't find it hilarious at home, to me, this was a huge win for the show. Now, I thought this was really funny. I think that there was moments here where they escalated as great as they could. I think that they totally set up a world in which they could bring this back and try more. And, you know, I loved Stefan when that was a thing that Bill Hader used to do with John Mulaney before I even realized that a lot of the things on the cue cards he hadn't seen before. And once I did realize that, I fell in love with it even more and was more excited for it to come back in the future. So for me, this is like a very exciting moment, Haynes, to be like, as we're establishing sort of a newer era past the 50th with these new cast members of like, here was a premise that may define the era. I was very thrilled with tonight.
I don't know if it'll go on to be a premise that defines the era, but I absolutely loved it. And like you said, I mean, the first thing I thought about was, listen, we know that this, that this is just a great way to make people break, like you said, with Milady and Hader during the Stefan stuff, and obviously joke swap. So this is a new, as you said, inventive way to kind of to incorporate that. But it's really, I think what's most spectacular about it is just leveraging the opportunity, the resources in front of you, because everyone knows Gosling is a breaker. And so we take this sketch that, as someone in the chat, you put up, someone in the chat said anyone could have been in this sketch and they would have been breaking. Absolutely. But Gosling is like, this is like shooting fish in a barrel. If you got Ryan Gosling and then you're going to pull this move, like, obviously, like, it's just, we're going to flood this thing with breaking. So it was just a really smart move to make this happen. And of course the jokes were hilarious. I mean, when she asked Chat GPT for makeup, if you have any makeup tips, and it just said no, that's funny. But I was dying, and even while you were doing the intro talking about this sketch, I just could not stop laughing to myself, thinking about when he said, I watched him miss 133 layups and then yell, there's got to be a way to do this. It's just like, that was so freaking funny to me. And then of course, her trying to go into the gynecologist's office and saying, they've seen it 100 times. Just tuck it in and tell them it happened again.
You
and
can't have the worst one in the world.
Yeah, you can't have that. And listen, the spaghetti thing was so awesome, because it would have been hilarious just to pull out a bag of spaghetti that big, right? Because obviously the joke is that this woman crushes at lunch, like she has to eat, and to pull out that much spaghetti was so funny. But when it said lunch number 2 on there, I mean, you're just doubling down on the same joke. It was just really well done, top to bottom, for all the reasons that we discussed. It was inventive. You leveraged that thing that you're going to get with Gosling and got even more out of it. You amplified it. And then on top of that, they were just great jokes. And as Gosling's character told us, it's, roasting is just bullying that's really funny. So it was a great sketch.
Yeah, I think you got to know your host, right? And you got to lean into it. If you're going to bring him back again and he's so charming that people want to see him again, then have some fun with it. And I think that's what they did here tonight. It was a very fun show to be at. So let me tell you about some of the things that happened at the dress version. And let me just say, I'm not always an advocate for SNL uploading the dress rehearsal versions of sketches. I think that dilutes the premise of the show, which is like, hey, we're trying to peak on air. Like, let's show what actually got onto the show. However, in this case, I do think that they should upload both the dress and the live version, because I think it would be very cool for people to get to see both of these. In case they don't, though, I'll tell you about some of the notes from dress. So one of them was Ryan's note, which was about him loving watching Ryan Gosling in La La Land, but not the redhead. One of Ashley's notes was about how she bought a MAGA JD Vance vibrator into an AMC theater to watch Wuthering Heights. And Mikey read a note, and then instead of another note being in Ashley's desk, this time it was so in the dress, it was another note in Ashley's desk. This time it was spaghetti. And at dress, the sketch ended with Ashley reading a note that asked Ryan out to dinner over the weekend, but Ryan only wanted to go as a friend. So some differences there naturally with the concept of the sketch. This was really, really fun. I do hope they do this again, even if Ryan isn't there. This could go on for sure. All right, let's talk about the Goo Goo Man. So a very unique thing that's happening here. We don't know what is the Goo Goo Man. Oh, sorry. And let me just say, Otezla has transported us to spring. So congratulations, we've just sprung forward. Let's go. Let's talk about the Goo Goo Man, though. So Sarah and Ryan are checking out from their trip to Phoenix. Mikey is working at the hotel desk, going over their bill. Cashews, massages, $1,200 for 2 visits from the Goo Goo Man. Sarah's very confused. Ryan looks at the bill, doesn't understand what's going on. They end up calling in Keenan, the manager, as they go through all of the details of this mysterious Goo Goo Man. We're going to see Jeremy in line as well as part of the weird brotherhood of Goo Goo Men. Ashley will pop in to let them know that an older gentleman has fallen, which will get some. We'll get that payoff later on with Keenan. So, Haynes, what did you think of the mysterious Goo Goo Man sketch?
Well, it started out. I mean, it didn't really know exactly. Well, I mean, first of all, when you see that there's going to be extra charges on the hotel room, the classic joke is always just that, somebody ordered porn or something. I'm glad that obviously they did something much more creative than that. That would have been pretty low hanging fruit, but I mean, the vibes were extremely 10-1. Like the audience was not laughing early in the sketch. It was like there was some awkward tension while folks are trying to figure out where this is going. And it was kind of a slow build. It warmed up more and more. I did like Keenan's character again. I thought Keenan was good in this. I thought, one of the first of all, I like that it was a tight ending. It was a nice, clean, tight ending. It was not one of those ones where they kind of put something too mushy and soft on the end. It was a really clean, tight ending. So I thought structurally that was great. But that maybe. I loved the joke that his rewards number, he said 3 and he's like, that's it. Or like, that's all I need. But the best line of the sketch was, she was like, just tell me, is this a sexual thing? And he's like, oh my God, that is the Goo Goo Man's decision. Something. That was a really, really great line. So a classic 10-1 vibes. And with the slow warm up while people are really trying to figure out what's going on, but I think it landed in a really great place.
Yeah, I feel like this was a blend between a couple of sketches that we saw last time with Gosling, where we had the cookie sketch with Dr. Please. And I almost felt like Dr. Please, if Bowen was still in the cast, would have fit very well into this sketch as just being like part of the Goo Goo Men fraternity that they have going on here. But also like it had elements of the engagement sketch that we really loved with Andrew Dismukes, of like this guy who just like has this mysterious thing going on and he's just like very into it. And I think the like enthusiastic nature of Gosling in this really won me over, Olivia, where other hosts wouldn't have been able to pull this off for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ryan Gosling is really good at hyperfixations as sort of the crux of the sketch. So I loved that about this. I thought it was very silly and dumb in the best way. I did also think though that like often Andrew Dismukes is really good at these hyperfixations. Like I almost would have, like Jumanji or Beep Beep, whatever. I would have loved to have seen like a little bit of interplay between them. Like if perhaps like, love to see Jeremy in that role, like for that second. But, if there was sort of like a larger role of someone else who had an interaction with the Goo Goo Man, it would have been fun to see Dismukes playing that because he's just so good at these hyperfixations. But yeah, I thought it was silly, fun. I'm pretty sure the ending was abrupt because they were trying to make time to I'm losing it's now 3 and I'm losing vocab. They were trying to slip in lies at the end. So I do think that there was maybe a little bit more to this and possibly a different ending that we would have seen if they had time. But yeah, I thought it was silly and playful and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do think that if I could nitpick, I do think there needed to be more pushback from either another person. So like maybe Mikey wasn't the right person to be like arguing with him because he doesn't have that in a sketch. Like maybe that is an Andrew role that works better, though I don't know what Mikey's involvement was in the design of the sketch in the first place. So I'll just say that right now. But or Sarah needed to play this like a little bit harsher for me than she actually played it, where she was sort of like confused wife, when I would have preferred her to be like, I'm leaving you if you don't explain to me what the Goo Goo Man is right now. I think that would have played a little bit funnier to me. But again, little things here.
I do think that a little more contrast could have supported what Gosling's character was going through, because it was a lot, and we were really just watching him and Mikey and Keenan kind of play through it. So we could have had a little more contrast to brighten that up, probably.
Yeah, there was a little of like, we're all in the weeds with Goo Goo Man. So All right, let's go over to our final sketch of the night, which we just got it in here right before the buzzer. Martin Herlihy's Lies pre-tape, where we're going to see him talking about all of the great lies with Tommy talking about cutting out carbs. We got Sarah and Veronica agreeing to have dinner sometime. James's penis is long. We got Jeremy as a therapist. Cam is walking out of 30 Rock, bumps into Herlihy, who is decided to do the biggest lie of them all, which is dressed as Colin Jost. He's going to appear on, we get a filmed cameo from Seth Meyers. He's going to appear on a late night there. We're going to end up seeing Marcelo in this one as well. He's going to punch him backstage. Jane's going to come out to who thinks that this is the real Colin and offer him some cocaine. And then the real Colin just appears, his third appearance of the night. So I'll have to go back and check in the archives of how many episodes in Colin Just's career has he appeared 3 times in an episode. I got to check that out. But Colin appears, and of course, Jane is very confused, cannot tell the difference, a la the famous digital short of the doppelganger. But here we go, and she's going to end up shooting Colin Jost here, who does not make it apparent enough that he is the real Jost. Olivia, what did you think of the Herlihy pre-tape?
I thought it was so perfect. I mean, I was so happy when they got it in at the end. And last time I was here on the pod, I got to comment on another one of Martin's pre-tapes, and yeah, I just loved it so much. There were so many moments that made me absolutely die, like when he said, I always do my own stunts, and that it was a black man falling over a table. So funny. And just like seeing him with the Jost face and because it reminded me so much of like the chin implant. I asked for the John Hamm and I got the Jay Leno, brother. Like it reminded me so much of that. But it's just so much fun. And the more absurd he gets with these things, the more I love them. He can do no wrong in my mind. I thought it was great.
Haynes, did you like this one?
I love anytime we get a Martin Herlihy film. I love these. The prosthetics were hilarious. He reminded me of, I don't know if anyone's going to remember this, but he reminded me of like the dad figure in these old like Energizer battery commercials where these people are wearing like prosthetics that look like this. Really funny. I absolutely loved when he's fighting with the real Colin about that like he was doing his musical or something, and they cut to it. It says CJ the musical is like the name of the musical that Colin Jost has been writing. Thought that was hilarious. The bit on Seth's show with the dancing, the insanely goofy dancing, and then the cut to the autograph from Kevin Spacey that says the usual suspects with the usual suspects in quotes. Yeah, I mean, I love it anytime we get a Martin film.
I agreed. Yeah, for sure. I still think that his personality is so uniquely different to the rest of the cast that whenever we see him, it really excites me. I still think to myself that there's like a place for him on this show. So I really do enjoy getting to see him, even though I may have preferred some of the other Herlihy pre-tapes from the season. Still got me some good laughs here tonight. All right, let's put our ratings in for this episode. So Olivia and Haynes, while you think about how you want to rate this episode out of 10 and chat as well, we invite you to put your ratings in there. I'll tell you what was cut from the night. And we had some major cuts here tonight, so we'll go over them. So first, I'll tell you about a couple that I would say like are not the bigger ones, but we'll see if they end up popping out online. So first is a sketch called Good Morning Poughkeepsie, which is a sketch that featured Ryan, Ashley, James, and Keenan as news anchors and Marcelo as a chef, where Ryan lashes out at his co-anchors for mispronouncing a name. Apparently Ashley's performance in this was also really solid, so we'll see if that one comes up. There was one called Actor Demands. This featured Chloe, Keenan, Ben, and Ryan. Ryan keeps making demands and taking stands that he immediately retracts when Ben tells him otherwise. Example, no nudity, nudity is required, etc. Then we had a sketch that was really a James Austin Johnson piece, which featured James and Ryan as 2 passengers on the Titanic complaining about their lousy vacation. Featured Andrew as a captain, Tommy, and Sarah. And apparently the set design for this was absolutely insane. So the set was slanted, and they were shaking the lights above the set and throwing water and having people slide down the slant. So if you ever go back to the first season of Saturday Night Live and you've seen those ABBA performances, as they're falling over and stuff like that, and it's like you see a bunch of the writers and people in there as they're like falling out of the set as ABBA's performing. That was like sort of what we got here. I'm so curious if they're going to like redo that one. Big piece for James that didn't make it to the show tonight. So that's a little disappointing. Then, I know you were all asking for it, Beavis and Butthead 2 made it to dress rehearsal, did not make it to the live show. So in this case, we had Ashley replacing Heidi in this sketch. We had Sarah as a strategically placed Tina Belcher lookalike behind Ashley when she tells Ryan to move. There are obviously playing their Beavis and Butthead characters. There's a rare continuity in the sketch when Keenan mentions he saw something like this on another News Nation show in the past as he sees the Beavis and Butthead. But really the main jokes of this Beavis and Butthead sketch, it's sort of like imagine the Fred Armisen, David Patterson thing where we get Beavis and Butthead who they're constantly like blocking the camera and walking by it. And, maybe they post this as bonus content or as a cut for time sketch, but we did not get this on the live show. So that was, very surprising to me. I would think that they would have had that. Actually, in dress rehearsal, Ryan introduced Gorillaz in his Beavis and Butthead costume. So it was definitely a big part of the dress rehearsal that we did not get in the live show. So, Haynes, I'll go to you. How are you going to rate this episode out of 10?
Ooh, out of 10? I mean, I enjoyed it a lot, and there's always like different ways that people can kind of rate on this scale. I think that even kind of like the worst episodes of SNL are still kind of average good TV, and there's and live comedy's hard. So sometimes I think of like a bad episode of SNL being like a 5, not a 1 or something. So this I enjoyed a lot. I would give this one like maybe an 8.5. I mean, I would give it a pretty strong rating. I'll say 8.5.
Olivia, that's great. Olivia, are you feeling as strong as Haynes?
Yeah, honestly, I think I would go even a little bit higher and say a 9, only because they took such a risk tonight and did something so different that I've never seen before. That I feel like it just has to be rewarded. To me, it's not about exactly how funny it was, like you were saying, John. Like that's so subjective. It's about like what they did with the form of sketch comedy. And to me, I feel like they broke that in the monologue. They broke that in some of the sketches, and they definitely broke that in the classroom sketch with the notes. So I feel like they took risks. They tried so many new things. I want to see more of it, and I would definitely give it a 9.
I would agree. I think I'm probably going to go more 8 than 9, but that's not to take away from how much fun I think this show was. I think that there was like a couple of moments here, especially the monologue and the passing note sketch and even Cyclops in a way. Like I almost wish that, like I hope that Cyclops and passing notes like don't overshadow each other. But I think like those are like 3 pretty big moments that we're always going to remember from this episode as we're talking about like end of season and which sketches are going to be the most memorable. I think that those are all definitely some of them to be thinking about. I was really impressed with Ryan tonight. I felt like it was cool that they didn't lean on Close Encounters. We didn't end up getting Beavis and Butthead. There was no Papyrus, and they still made for a really fun show. So I feel like 8 out of 10 feels right for me. I think this is one of the strongest episodes that we've had in the back half of the season so far, which I would say has not been overall as strong as the first half. But I really feel like having Harry in the building probably will lead to carrying some of this momentum over to next week, just the vibes and just being there. So I'm excited for what we're going to get next week with Harry Styles, and I'm feeling really good about covering this episode all week long. So we will be back on Monday night for our roundtable to talk through this one in more detail, talk about the biggest moments and sketches of the night. Also, Ryan Gosling's entire SNL career, which you can see now in our video that we have out on YouTube, everything you need to know about Ryan Gosling on SNL. We, of course, will have our By the Numbers show on Wednesday, where Mike Murray, who's already punching the numbers, if you haven't been with us in the live chat, Mike is already there with the data. Incredible stuff there from the math genius. So we'll see him on Wednesday night going through all the screen time and stats from this week of Saturday Night Live. So that'll be Wednesday at 8 p.m. We will also have the release of our next episode of our 20 Years Later series over on Patreon, where we will be looking back at the Matt Dillon and Arctic Monkeys episode of Saturday Night Live. Speaking of the digital short Doppelganger. So Sammy and I will be back for that. That will be available to our YouTube members of the patron exclusive podcast feed and over on Patreon. And we have another fun thing out on Patreon now. So if you are a member or have an account with Patreon, or you can make one for free, you can register to be a patron on our show completely for free if you'd like for that tier. And we will have our new Saturday night newsletter newsletter available to you, which I'm very excited that Sammy K has been working very hard on. That will come out on Fridays. That will talk about all of the biggest SNL moments of the week, talk about some of the things that are coming up in SNL world as well. So you go to patreon.com, register for an account completely for free, sign up with us, and you will get the newsletter. We're excited to be sharing that as a new thing we're doing over at Patreon. So we hope you'll join our patron community over there. Olivia, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Excellent first hot take show for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I honestly, it was such a fun episode. I was struggling to find like sort of critical things to say, but I think just asking for more of the new stuff is kind of as critical as I could be tonight. But yeah, it was great. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think you just got to be real. You say how you feel about the show here tonight, and that's okay. If you love everything, that's great. So there's no problem with that. Haynes, appreciate you staying up late with us tonight. So thank you for joining us here.
Oh, worst night of the year, but absolutely worth it to talk about such a fun episode. Ashley and Sarah just continuing to show the stars that they are, and what a great time.
Absolutely. Very exciting stuff here. And I'm very excited to be back here next Saturday night for the Harry Styles show. So we'll go through the whole week talking about that one as well. And we hope you'll be back here with us. I want to thank Late Nighter for being the presenting partner for our show here. I want to thank our team who did an excellent job here on social media all week long, and especially tonight, and everybody who contributed to making the show so fantastic. So I really appreciate all of you, Olivia, Haynes, and everyone in the chat for staying up late with us and springing forward on this Ryan Gosling and Gorillaz night. So on behalf of everyone here at the Saturday Night Network, my name is Jon Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody.